This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Good morning and welcome to Loose on the Lead. Seth Merrill, and look who's here, Steve Bick.
Oh, who's here?
In the studio. Seth Merrill, EquiDaily.com. Steve Bick at Sirius and XM's At the Races. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Seth. Good morning, everybody. Happy to be here. And it's such a beautiful spring morning.
And we...
What the hell?
Yeah, I've been saying that for the last 2 weeks. I came out, it was Friday morning, I came out to drive here, and all week long the weather people are, it's going to turn at the end of the week, it's going to be, I came out, there was snow on the car on Friday morning. I had to use the brush.
Exactly.
No.
Unbelievable.
But before we get into it, I wanted to bring up, you brought in your Dunkin' coffee this morning, and wondering if you're going to share your Dunkin'
How about this?
Dunkin' story.
How about this? I told you the drive-in the other day, a couple of weeks ago, about the clock on the car on the chain. I love this. I got a cup of coffee and share your Dunkin' story. I've got a story. We pulled the car up. I went into the store, into the donut shop, and I ordered coffee. They gave me coffee and I paid for it. I left a little tip and I left. That's my story. Share your Dunkin' story. What?
Thank God for social media.
Are you kidding
Where
me?
else would we get
I went in, I got a donut and coffee, and I left.
They all lived happily ever after.
What are they looking for? I met my wife at Dunkin'. I mean, this is over the top. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I looked across the counter, and there was a gorgeous woman with a chocolate frosted with sprinkles. Exactly. My favorite donut.
That's what it was. It was magical. I got a story for them. What happened to the donuts that they were founded on? The one with the little handle?
The actual Dunkin'.
They discontinued it. Tell them that story next time you go in there.
Yeah, that may be the story.
Dunkin' story.
All right, let's get into some news. And as the show progresses, obviously plenty of racing
There's
to
no
go over.
progressing from here.
But Dubai, we'll touch on those races. Gulfstream Fairgrounds as well. It was
Great day of racing.
Big day of racing.
Great day.
Let's touch on some of the news, however. Keeneland, over the past week, has announced, not really surprised, they're going to pitch for the Breeders' Cup. Del Mar, the story to me, although we'll hit on the sub-story as well, but the story to me is, when does he come back to New York? Because Del Mar, obviously, with the whole revamp of the turf course, they're making a bid, and it looks like a pretty good chance they'll get it. Now, you think if Keeneland jumps in, they stand a pretty good chance. So when, again, is New York going to be in the rotation? But Keeneland, in their bid, also talking about going back to dirt. So that's a big part of the story as well.
Unbelievable. They buried the headline. The headline was Keeneland will make a pitch for the Breeders' Cup. First of all, I don't know if you've ever been to Keeneland in November. It could be. I mean, they talk about New York being cold and uncomfortable. You're out on that hill in Keeneland, and if you're not going to be undercover, you better wear your parka and your long johns, because it could be miserably cold. Keeneland basically has told horsemen that after the meet this spring, they've got to clear out by early May. And that's an indication that they are going to go ahead and replace their poly track with a dirt course. And, I said this whenever, I guess when Del Mar announced that they were going to pull out their poly track, Keeneland has managed to go absolutely scot-free with their money grab. They were involved with Martin Collins. They partnered up. They sold the industry on this claim that this was going to be the main track of the future, maintenance-free and safe. I mean, certainly the safety aspect was good. The maintenance-free, not so good. Keeneland basically sent the industry down this path. California, of course, overreacts and forces the distribution of the synthetic tracks in all of their racetracks. And we end up with a complete 6-7 year fiasco that is now quickly retracting. And no one, I mean, Keeneland is the Teflon racetrack that seems to get away with whatever they do. People just coo and ah. I don't get it. But they'll go back to a main track, and of course it'll be probably as glib and speed favoring as ever, and we'll get a couple more sinister ministers. I'm not a fan, and I don't really get Keeneland, but they're going to go back to dirt. That's I guess a positive long term. I don't see it as a Breeders' Cup host at all.
Well, I just think because they do have that prominent place in the industry. When they make a pitch, the Breeders' Cup, I think, will bite.
Where are they going to put a Breeders' Cup crowd exactly? As it is, they can't hold 30,000. It's miserable there now with 30,000. You can't get in and out of the place with even a crowd of 30. So how are they going to get 50 or 60? Just go to Churchill and get 75, and everybody's comfortable. Go to a racetrack that knows how to handle a crowd.
And it will be interesting to see how that does shake out, though, because as I say, I think they're prominent enough in the industry. And again, where does New York come in this mix? Or do they ever come back into this mix?
Who knows?
But again, tying also into what we saw this weekend over in Dubai, it looks like
they're unhappy.
The synthetic surface
They're unhappy.
is becoming a real niche because it looks like they're going to go back to dirt as well.
Sheikh Hamdan blasted him this week. He was outspoken critic of where things are. He knows or believes certainly that without North American participation, that it's still a great event. And I got to tell you, I thought the racing, we're going to go over it. I thought the racing yesterday at Dubai was a riot, and I hit a couple of pick threes, which made it really fun. But I thought the racing was really entertaining yesterday. I'm looking forward. We're going to watch a few of the stretch runs and talk about some of the very impressive winners, including the UAE Derby winner, Toast of New York, a domestically produced colt with a very interesting pedigree, very turfy, but with a little hint of potential dirt ability. We'll see. Out of a very grassy family, but by a son of King Mambo. We'll see. Toast of New York very well may come to the U.S.
All right, we'll touch on some of those races in a moment. But again, some more of the news this past week. The Peter story obviously continues to resonate. There have been comments by the pundits and whatever. My take is still, and my take has evolved over. My feeling now is that the industry hasn't stepped up the way I would like to see him step up. Our response is more, thank you, sir, may I have another kind of a thing. But also, I think what we're seeing is a reflection of the abandonment of the mainstream sports press of horse racing. There's just there's no tie-in anymore. And so the New York Times can throw these bombs with impunity. To me, there was some real integrity and ethical journalistic questions involved with that original story, and there was just nobody to follow up. We went 8 days without hearing any comment from Gary Stevens. Finally, he does make a comment, and where is it? It's in the follow-up story in the New York Times. Nobody else seemed to reach out to him, or if they did and he didn't answer, then shame on him. If he only answered first time to the Racing Forum. Where do we hear a comment from Steve Asmussen on yesterday's NBC Sports broadcast? Jerry Bailey says, I called him up and he didn't have any comment.
Well, Jay Privman had an extensive Steve Asmussen. I mean, at least in terms of approaching him, and Asmussen saying that he, first of all, you understand with some of the legal ramifications.
And that's fine.
There's not going to be a lot of
if he says
comments.
that. But yeah. I'd like to see that follow up. I'd like to see it more in the mainstream sports media as well, because I don't know if the racing press is kind of equipped for these kind of stories. But I think the story to me is not fair, it's not balanced, because we just no longer have a media to go out there and do it. So that's kind of my take on it. But one of the major things that came up over the past couple of days, Ogden Phipps and the Jockey Club have stepped out, reacted to it, and put out some thoughts that they've already floated out there, that if the racing industry doesn't come together on the medication issue on its own, the Jockey Club is going to push for federal legislation. I continue to say I think that's going to be a big mistake, but that was the push from the Jockey Club.
Yeah, Diddy Phipps wrote a very heartfelt and very sincere missive that basically echoed a lot of the things that he also had said at the Jockey Club Roundtable. For those of you that were listening to At the Races and you had a chance to hear from Alan Foreman, from the THA, the Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association, and also, of course, legal counsel in a lot of different industry areas, including at the RMTC. We'll take a couple of notes here, and I really have very little added perspective other than what I offered here last Sunday by phone, and I will just say that what Phipps was discussing is really, to me, a bit of further evidence that this particular incident and then last year's New York Times series, the New York Times piece the year before that, all of this, Seth, points to what I discussed, I mentioned last week, the concept of a class war. The desire of a certain segment of the industry to relegate or segregate or eliminate a certain portion of the ownership, the training, and the breeding, and basically exert the same control that they feel they've lost. And they don't care if it means the dismantling of the sport really as we know it. And with this statement that they will throw their weight behind potential federal legislation, by the way, that would have absolutely zero impact on anything even that is alleged in the video. That should be pointed out, that there's nothing that has gone on or is even conceivable from the video that the legislation actually would have any ramification on. As a horseman said to me this week, which I thought was very humorous, the only abuse in the video is the English language. That's the only thing being abused. It's just so obvious that this group of very prominent and certainly respected ownership and breeding community, they want to be in control. Satish Sanan has said this for years, and they're going to try to do it this way. And if they build in an extra layer of supervision, first of all, the states aren't going to just cede control. If they think that 38 state governments are going to give up all of the revenue they make on racing, they're in for a big surprise. Because I think these states, I think they like the revenue that they're getting. So the entire construct of the industry is going to be a large impediment to this concept. Then, of course, there's the expense. And the point is that a federal government layer of management is going to cost something. Who do you think is going to pay for that exactly? Horse players, raise your hands. And as they drive the horse players out, that would be a side benefit to this group of people who already don't like the horse players and who already over the century have made it clear that they're bothered and aghast by the fact that people bet on this game. So there's some real division of society going on in this debate. It's the underpinnings of everything involved here. And it's been for the last several years, trying to reignite the Lasix discussion. Everything involved here comes back down to this central core. And take your spot. One of the things you talk about the media. One of the things that is just remarkable about this is how people who are supposed to understand the game and understand the sport They just they're like lemmings over the cliff. And they're going to throw up their hands. I mean, clearly, if they knew anything about horsemanship, and if they were in contact with the backstretch and knew exactly, they would basically scoff. I mean, you want to basically agree that Scott Blasi comes off awfully, and is you want to be aghast at that? Fine. The behavior and the boisterousness and the bravado and all of that, that's fine. But I mean, some of the owners that have, basically trying to pass themselves off as some sort of moral standard, taking some kind of high ground. I mean, one in particular that has just been, I mean, frankly, the behavior has been ridiculous. There's a lot going on in here. I think the initial, Alan Foreman, if you heard him on my show, if you read Alan's statement, they're taking a very reasonable approach. They're going to let the dust settle, let Mary Scolay in Kentucky and Scott Palmer here in New York, let them go through their investigations, and then they will have a formal response. In the meantime, the RMTC model rules, the advancement that has already been made, and it was being made all this time, it's just a gross insult to people in the industry who have worked hard to advance things to the point where they are. You never beat all the cheaters 100%, and that's been true for 150 years in the game. So I don't know what they think they're going to achieve other than to dismantle and make things worse for everybody if they want to go down this path.
And you brought up a couple of the ideas that are getting to me. The industry, as I say, there's a thank you, sir, may I have another kind of response when I would like to hear a little more of, oh, wait a minute. What about the tens of millions of dollars the industry put into the synthetic surfaces on the safety issue? The industry, there was a huge investment. The Medication Consortium has been working on the medication issue now for years. And really, with the Mid-Atlantic states and the pact they put together, and that spreading has really been an effective.
Eradicated. Steroids were eradicated in 18 months. Clenbuterol withdrawal times have been expanded from 3 days to 3 weeks. Out of competition testing is advancing. American racehorses are more thoroughly tested than any athlete in the world. And this constant badgering and this constant belittling of what the system already has achieved is beyond description. There's been more advancement in 10 years than there were in the previous 50. And it's remarkable. And I don't get this.
And there is just little mention of that in the addressing of these kind of, the bombs get thrown and we're always kind of, oh my goodness, it's time for us to shape up, and nobody recognizes, wait a minute, what about what has already gone on? Let's step up to the plate and make that point. And as you say, no matter how clean the game gets, it's like any other industry where there are billions of dollars involved. There's always going to be somebody who's kind of taking advantage. We're never going to get away from that. There's always going to be, somebody will always be able to sneak in a undercover video and uncover something. There are billions of dollars involved, so it's never going to be squeaky clean. We have to realize that. All right, let's take our break. When we come back, we will look at those races from Dubai yesterday, Dubai World Cup and some of the Undercup races as well. A little later on, some of the Gulfstream and Fairground races as well. All of that when Loose on the Lead continues.
Hey race fans, head down to the all-new Clubhouse Racebook. With live horse racing on more than 250 flat-screen TVs, state-of-the-art wagering terminals, and amazing Vegas-style atmosphere. The Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
Go Zephyr kicking clear, and Go Zephyr is pulling away impressively.
Hysterical Lady Ginger Punch to win it.
And it's Wilco in front, and he's going to pull off a huge upset here.
But it's Round Pond going on to take the distaff.
Awesome again. Sire of 10 Grade 1 winners, 4 Breeders' Cup champions, and 4 multimillionaires, standing at Adena Springs.
It's more than just a sports bar. It's Stadium Cafe. Located at 389 Broadway in Saratoga, it's the place to be for great times and great food. Their menu features everything from gourmet entrees to your favorite wraps and sandwiches. Or maybe you just want to grab a beer and catch the game. So what could be better than that? How about 2 stadium cafes? There's also the Westside Stadium, right up the road at 112 Congress Street. Same great menu, same great service. Whether you're hanging at the bar or just relaxing outside on their spacious covered patio, you'll always leave knowing you'll be back again.
We love, above all, the staff. We love Dave Harmon, and the food is fantastic.
Not 1, but 2. 112 Congress Street, 389 Broadway. Guaranteed to be a home run.
Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTV.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTV.com. Log on today.
Welcome back to Loose on the Lead. Seth Mero and Steve Bick in here every Sunday morning. And this Sunday morning, things are exciting because there was a lot of racing action, not only in the United States, but across the globe, with it being Dubai World Cup Day. We'll take a look at some of those Dubai races now. We'll kick things off, look at the stretch run of the UAE Derby, Grade 2 event, and a mile and 3/16. So as far as potential Derby preps, I don't know whether we'll see a Kentucky Derby horse come out of this, but as far as the potential Derby preps, this would be the longest as far as distance traveled. We're going to watch the stretch run here. It will be number 8, Toast of New York, getting it done. Finishing 4th is Giovanni Baldini, went out for Aidan O'Brien. I mentioned that one because that horse was a nice second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf last fall at Santa Anita, so there was maybe a little rooting interest there. But Toast of New York winds up to be the winner.
This horse, under Jamie Spencer, just absolutely dominates. I mean, watch this acceleration. This is a canter. He demolishes this field. And this is a horse out of a mare by the name of Claire Soleil. And Claire Soleil's dam, Claire Marin, you may remember from the late 80s, 1989, Charlie Whittingham. She had a magical year, won like 7 or 8 stakes. Mostly on the turf, and so it's a grassy female family. And the sire, of course, The Way You Are. This is a Coolmore, a young Coolmore stallion, who is the brother of Peeping Fawn. There you go. So that's a very international kind of a family. However, as a son of King Mambo, King Mambo, the sire of Lemon Drop Kid, for instance, there's also in the family. The second dam is Blush with Pride of The Way You Are. Blush with Pride is the dam of?
I don't know.
Better Than Honor.
Oh.
Who is the dam of? Jazzle, Rags to Riches, Casino Drive. There is hints that this is a horse, Toast of New York, that could conceivably be okay on Churchill Downs' main track. I'm not saying he's going to go, win a series of races on dirt in America, but we know that horses with turf action get over Churchill very well. Whether it's Doulahan or whether it's Barbaro, whether it's Animal Kingdom, whether it's Patio Prado, horses like that have turf feet, turf conformation, and turf movement, they can get over. The clay in the Churchill main track makes that possible. Their hooves stick a little bit more than they do slide like they do on standard dirt tracks. So I think it's very interesting. Owner Michael Buckley said he wasn't sure, but Jamie Osborne, the trainer who had a big day, Jamie Osborne said that in the back of his mind at the beginning of the year, Toast of New York, to his way of thinking, might be thinking Derby. So I think it'd be pretty cool if he comes over. And frankly, we've got such a muddled Derby picture as it is that why not? Why not bring him over? And he is a Kentucky bred. Was a $35,000 Keeneland yearling.
Pays $25, and to me that was maybe a little light. Now this horse, You could have made the argument Synthetic Specialist comes out of a couple of races at Wolverhampton with huge wins, huge daylight wins, and you could have made that argument. But we're looking Wolverhampton, Kempton, Leicester. Those are not the A tracks over there. So this is a horse with 4 starts on kind of the BC level circuit. And again, that $25 may be a little bit light to me, but looked pretty good doing it. So, all right, let's shift our attention now out to the Dubai Duty Free. Yesterday, we're going to watch Just Away get it done. The number 2 horse will win. And Vercingetorix, the 11 horse, winds up running second. Dank runs third. The disappointment in here, running 11th, is going to be the Fugue. But again, it'll be number 2, Just Away. Japanese horse will get it done.
This is an incredible performance, and this horse is absolutely coming together as a 5-year-old. This is going to be an international superstar. It was a terrific evening in Dubai for the Hong Kong and Japanese interests. They go berserk whenever they win. Just Away, a 5-year-old by Heart's Cry. This was unbelievably impressive. I mean, just jaw-droppingly easy, and just inhaled this field in a couple of jumps. Behind him, you mentioned the great story, Vercingetorix. You know this story with the Ryan Goldberg wrote? No. Ryan Goldberg, who does such nice work, wrote a beautiful story. This horse was produced by the South African Grooms Club. They've got all the grooms, they've got a national program, and they get to breed some horses every year. And this was a horse that the grooms all bred. It's really a cool story. Pull that up in the New York Times if you get a chance, Ryan Goldberg. So this was an incredible performance. I ended up singling Just Away in my pick 3s and hit a couple of pick 3s courtesy, and you know, big pools. It was a lot of fun yesterday, and this was a super impressive performance.
Paid $8.60, and again, the Fugue disappointing in there. Dank, of course, running second, coming off of the start prior was that Phillies Mayor Breeders' Cup turf win. The Fugue, 2 starts back, ran second to the Magician in the Breeders' Cup turf. Had run since then, second place finish back in December. But the Fugue, to me, obviously a disappointment in there. But the winner looked pretty good from Japan. And in the Shima Classic, another Japanese horse. This one's a bona fide superstar from Japan. Gentle Donna will get it done. The number 12 horse will win the Shima Classic. Our buddies at West Point, Twilight Eclipse, disappoints, running 12th. And not really a surprise. I think Twilight Eclipse was up against it. I don't knock him at all for trying. Cirrus de Aiglis runs second in here. An international, very potent horse. Magician, the Breeders' Cup winner, runs 6th. Dunedin, a former Melbourne Cup winner, runs 9th. But again, Gentle Donna in here, the number 12 horse wins. And as I say, this truly is a superstar horse over in Japan.
And a superstar that was beaten by Just Away in the 10-0 show. And that was, I mean, once Just Away won, it became just obvious that Gentle Donna wasn't losing this race. And, you know, it's funny, this race, if it wasn't going to be Gentle Donna, it would have been, you know, kind of wide open. There were a lot of other ways to go. But Gentle Donna, very much dominant, and just one of those special kinds of international stars. Almost $13 million in earnings coming in. So add another $3 million, which gets gets her, the 5-year-old Deep Impact daughter, up to close to $16 million now in earnings in U.S. dollars.
Boy, that is
unbelievable.
And pays, I think it was
$8.60. Both her and Just Away paid $8.60. And made for a nice sequence.
Flip side of that price-wise was African Story winning the Dubai World Cup, $36. That was the only race I played. I played a little 5-horse Exacta box because I thought there could be some value. I had African Story. My other horses were nowhere in the mix, so I couldn't take advantage of that $36. But African Story gets it done for the Godolphin folks, and Mukadram runs second. Caddo Mountain runs third. Akib Mofid, who was certainly getting some attention, runs fifth. Red Caddo runs sixth. Prince Bishop, I was kind of disappointed with the jockey there. I mean, he got off badly, and the jockey just seemed to give up at that point. Never really had the horse in the mix. Ruler of the World finishes 13th. 12th is Ron the Greek, but African Story for Godolphin really gets it done, and done pretty easily in here, too.
Yeah, you know, here's Sheikh Hamdan's complaint. You know, this is sort of a bizarre and sort of I don't want to call it a yawner. I mean, if you had African Story, congratulations. But what is this? It just doesn't really. What's the difference here in terms of, or the value, or the ramifications? I mean, most of these winners of this race, I mean, it used to be a big deal, and other than the money now, this isn't even as impressive a horse or as impressive a field as you had in the Shima Classic. It just sort of has become a ragtag, strange agglomeration of turf horses and some horses that have campaigned in the Winter Carnival and run through the series, the Maktoum Challenge series. It just doesn't have the same level of excitement or interest that it used to. And I think that's what Sheikh Hamdan is basically saying, that they've sort of lost their way with this race. To be honest, the rest of the day for us and the rest of the night watching there was great. This was like, ugh, all right. I mean, if you cashed a ticket, you were probably excited. Otherwise, to me, it just was a
I mean, you look at African Story. This is a 7-year-old that in 2013 had 2 starts, both of them over at Meydan, including this race, and then had come back this year and made a couple of starts prior to this, a 2nd place finish, and then last time an 8th place finish, and wins it for fun, essentially. And I'm with you. It was what really had no attraction or excitement. As I say, I made a play just because I thought, odds-wise, it was a little bit attractive, and it played out that way. Certainly, again, African Story winds up winning at $36. The exacta, $1,500. So it was one where you could have taken a little shot. But again, there was no name value or excitement, really. Certainly for the U.S. side of the equation.
Did you watch the Fox telecast?
I didn't see it.
I actually was getting hung up on, and because at that point, by the time the Fox telecast came on, there was action happening domestically.
Yeah, I had I was watching on the computer. I watched the simulcast segment.
Yeah, I was watching Gulfstream. Speaking of Gulfstream, we'll talk with Mike Welch in a couple more minutes. But you had early on that card, you had a very impressive winner for Mrs. Whitney that was tremendous. Viva Mallorca, Ian Wilkes. We'll talk about that one, 98 buyer. And you had the first-time starter, Shug McGahee, 7 furlongs. Especially the fillies, La Madrina, she wins and pays $13. So there were some important and interesting races to start that card at Gulfstream. So I kind of was still keyed in on, and I forgot. And then I didn't watch the other broadcast later on either.
That one I fired up. I watched that. I had the computer going, and I had that one going in the other room, and so I did watch that. But I also wanted to mention last Thursday, My Loot wins in the comeback down at Fairgrounds.
Won very well. And speaking of which, I do see you've got we almost forgot to bring up the finals on the future wager.
And surprisingly, given that it's the last pool, all week long I'm on the television show going, remember now, they closed Saturday this year, they closed Saturday, and I
forgot to so did I. I looked up, it was 6:13.
And really looking at it, there wasn't any, I probably would have jumped in and grabbed some all others, because I think at 5-1, there may be a little bit of value there. But 5-1, the all others is the favorite, which is unusual in the last pool.
Yeah.
The shortest individual prices, Cairo Prince and California Chrome, Candy Boy 13-1, Bayern at 15-1. Like I say, I don't know, Midnight Hawk at 51-1. Maybe if you're still on board there's a little interest, but otherwise there's not too much in this that would have attracted my attention.
I saw one number, and let me just pull it up, because I'm sort of the same way. But I thought there was...
Ride on Curlin at 49-1. There was still a lot of push for Ride on Curlin coming out of that Oaklawn race. There was some potential there, I suppose. Bobby's Kitten, Albano 46-1.
Wildcat Red 30-1. But there was something, Ride on Curlin 45-1 is a nice number, actually. And General A-Rod 24-1.
Opportunity at 15.
Constitution 19-1 before the race. Yeah, I mean, people, when...
Social Inclusions was 11, so he's short too.
That's insane. I mean, 11-1 on Social Inclusion, even if he wins the Wood by 10, it's a crazy number.
Yeah. So there was pool 4. Also, did just want to also mention, because it was big news, and they talked about this quite a bit on that NBC Sports broadcast, Cairo Prince with the fourth place finish, 24 points. So he sits at number 16
about this
now.
all week.
But I do want to bring up, I pulled up last year's leaderboard from exactly this time, the leaderboard that came out right after the Louisiana Derby and the Florida Derby were run, just for comparison's sake. The last horse in last year was Golden Soul with 14 points. This leaderboard timed last year, he was 24. The AE horse for Ken Ramsey, Fear the Kitten, he was sitting at number 39 with only 6 points. And he eventually became the AE horse. Golden Soul got in. So obviously, being 24, there were some defections further up. So there are 4 big races still to be run. Certainly there'll be some leapfrogs over Cairo Prince. There'll also be some defections, though. So he's very much a bubble horse, though, at this point.
Yeah, he did himself no favors. And you know what? At no point, we'll talk to Mike next. Mike Welch joins us after this. At no point did he look like a winner. No point in that race. And I know that, you know, when he started to try to range up, Larry Colmus made it sound, you know, here's Cairo Prince. He just.
I thought that move looked okay, but by the 8th pole, you knew, is he going to get third place and get the points he needs? And so, all right, we will take our break. When we come back, we will be joined by Mike Welch. We'll take a look at some of those Gulfstream races. Stay tuned.
May 3rd, it's the 140th running of the Kentucky Derby, and you can watch it at CapitalOTBBet.com. With live streaming and 3 easy-to-navigate wagering platforms, CapitalOTBBet.com is the most convenient way to wager on the Derby.
I didn't want to get just any degree after high school.
Horse racing has always been my passion.
I was already a lawyer.
When I was young, my dad took me to the races. The sound of the crowd. I still remember.
I'm 40. And I don't want to stay in a career I don't love.
I want to follow my passion.
Follow your passion at the University of Arizona Racetrack Industry Program.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night School in the Buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
The Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back. That's right. The 2014 Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back, and it's your chance to win thousands in cash and prizes, and a seat at the 2015 Handicapping Championship in Las Vegas. This month's contest is the Turf Hop on April 5th. So sign up today, online at CapitalOTB.com, or stop in at the Clubhouse Racebook.
I'm Jeff Carl. Join me Saturdays and Sundays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the weekend in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekends at 9, only here on the OTB TV network.
Welcome back to Loose on the Lead. We are reaching out to Mike Welch. When we get him, we'll be joined by him and talk a little Gulfstream, and I think we have him right now. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, guys.
Give us a little overview. You were on track, obviously, yesterday. What was it like down there at Gulfstream, crowd-wise and buzz-wise and whatnot?
Crowd-wise, it was great. I mean, it was. They had a great crowd. It was managed perfectly. I mean, everybody did their jobs yesterday. We thought we might have an issue with parking here with the big crowd, with all the constructions going on around here, but it didn't seem to be much of an issue. They bet $26.7 million, so it was much higher than expectations. So from that standpoint, today was a complete success, and I guess from the standpoint of the Florida Derby, you couldn't get a much better, more thrilling finish than we had. So the first four horses we figured to be there ran 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe not in the order everybody figured, but what an effort by Constitution and what a performance by Wildcat Red in defeat. I mean, you're not going to find a tougher gamer horse than he's become.
Mike, in terms of let's talk about the Derby and the Oaks as well, and we might as well just start with this Derby because we launched into it. And, we questioned Wildcat Red at 1 1/16. We questioned him at 9 furlongs, and all he keeps doing is just running his guts out. I mean, this was really impressive. I thought the board was telling us that General A-Rod couldn't win when he was up around 5-1. Give us your take. And, of course, Cairo Prince, to me, never looked at any point in the race like he was going to win.
Well, I can't say that. I mean, he made that run around the second turn, and he looked kind of menacing at that point off what had been a fairly contested pace. So he just didn't have the kick into him. So, now it's the question of, is he not good enough, or did the 9 weeks and maybe, the Gulfstream Park track kind of get to him the last quarter of a mile? That's might be a moot point. I mean, 24 points might not be enough to get him into the Derby. I'm sure Kieran is second-guessing himself a little bit for not running in the Fountain of Youth. Sometimes you're damned if you do and damned if you don't in those situations. As far as the race itself, which General A-Rod, someone had to be 4 or 5-1, and it turned out to be him out of those 4. And especially with Cairo Prince getting overbet the way he was. He ran third. I don't think the board said he couldn't win. I disagree with that. I mean, somebody had to be fourth choice, and it turned out to be him in that bunch. And I thought he ran great. I mean, he got fanned wide on the first turn purposefully by Wildcat Red. I just spoke to Jose Garofalo, and he thought General A-Rod was the one he had to beat, and they seemed to ride Wildcat Red with that in mind, and that's why he went out on the first turn, and it sounds like why he kind of fanned out on the second turn to fan him out again also, not thinking the Constitution was good enough to, or maybe at that point close enough to come up in there and take that spot away from him. So I thought General A-Rod ran great. I didn't think he trained quite as well coming up into this race as he had into the Fountain of Youth, but he ran great, and I'm sure his number's going to be pretty close to the same as his last race, and I'm sure he's going to go on and run in the Kentucky Derby. But, you got to tip your hat to Todd Pletcher and Constitution. For us to have only 2 starts under his belt to do what he did yesterday is amazing.
And certainly a feather in the cap, Mike, again, for the Clocker report, because Mike Vesey had really raved about the last couple of works for Constitution. So anybody that wanted to believe based on those comments, they had pretty good basis.
Yeah, I think we had the best report on Constitution. I had Wildcat Red working well here. I reiterate, I think the works on General A-Rod were not quite as sharp as they were going into the Fountain of Youth, but he ran well. And Cairo Prince, Mike said to me that this horse does not work well alone. He works very well when he's in company. He had a B-plus work in company with a Nawi. But, that's 5/8 of a mile, and this was a mile and an eighth off a 9-week layoff. So, again, I think it's a big question mark hanging over his head whether it was the layoff that got him yesterday or whether he's just not good enough. So they're going to continue on as if he's going to make the Derby, and then they're going to have to sweat out these next few preps and see what happens. And the jockey situation is going to be up in the air, too. I mean, what happens if Cairo Prince doesn't make it to the Derby? Someone's going to want Luis Saez, I'm sure. I talked to Jose Garofalo about his rider situation. He said Johnny V is his first choice, but he's got to wait to see how things pan out for him in the next couple of weeks, and if he's Johnny V's first choice. And he said if he's not, I'd love to have Luis Saez back on my horse again. But, he's just got to wait and see what happens down the road as far as, the musical chairs with these riders go. I'm going to guess Javier now will stay with Constitution, but, he's got other irons in the fire as well.
Mike, let's talk about the girls' race. A lot to go through here, and In Tune ends up pinch hitting for the sadly passed Only for You. And Todd Pletcher, when he was with me this week, had a lot of positive things to say about In Tune. She certainly fit the circumstance. It was an absolute terrific race. Her and House Rules for the Chief. Let's take a look as you give us your thoughts.
I thought, like you said, I agree. It was a great race, and to me it looked like a 2-horse race. I thought House Rules had her measured at the top of the stretch, and I think it was just a difference of Javier Castellano out-finishing Alex Solis in this case. I mean, if you watch the finish, you'll notice that House Rules never gets off her left lead, and if you watch the 2 riders, one's riding a lot harder than the other, I thought, and that was the difference, The general consensus here is if you swap riders, you probably would have swapped results. And I just felt bad for the Chief. I mean, he took the defeat well, but deep down inside, he was hurt, and he wanted to win that race really badly with her.
No doubt, and we'll see what happens. I suppose there's every expectation that they all, that the pair of them go forward?
I believe the quote that we got out of the chief after the race was the acorn, not the yolks, for House Rules. Chief's a New York guy, and maybe he feels that distance is better for her, but that was just a preliminary thought. I know Chief was a little emotional after the race, so maybe things will change in the next week or so as he decides, what he's going to do with her and what he's going to do with himself. I mean, he was kind of up in the air whether he was going to stay here for the summer or go back to Belmont or stay here and then head maybe to Saratoga, but directly to Saratoga. So that's all to be determined still.
Well, it was a busy day for Alex Solis, and even though he gets decisioned out of this, he is able to beat Kendrick Carmouche with Hey Leroy, and he came rallying. What a nice horse this is, and Manny Asperua and Ron Sanchez. With all the carrying on about social inclusion, I guess nobody was paying attention at 12-1 of Hey Leroy, who always runs his race.
Yeah, I mean, Hey Leroy, if you look at his numbers, he's consistently, in the allowance races, his numbers are better than everything he runs against. And coming into this race, he was just as good as the stakes horses. I mean, part of that, for those that get the sheets, is because he usually runs wide and has that loss of ground, and that's what's cost him a few victories. But, you're right. Alex Solis came right, bounced back from what I thought was not a great effort on House Rules to ride a terrific race on Hey Leroy. And it was his 7th start since New Year's Day, and he's worked in between races. So you talk about a real iron horse. I know Ron Sanchez in the winner's circle when he won that allowance race 2 weeks ago said this is going to be a stakes horse, a stakes winner, a graded stakes winner, and we all kind of looked at him, yeah, right, And sure enough, 2 weeks later, here he is. He's a graded stakes winner.
Unbelievable. Let's quickly hit a couple of the other highlights before we talk about the other maiden races, the other 3-year-olds, because there was some very noteworthy performances. You pushed Micromanage, and I wish I had been a little bit more inclined to use him prominently as an A in my multis. Micromanage wins the skip away and looked good doing it.
Yeah, I mean, he got the perfect trip. The blinkers on worked. It got him, put just enough extra speed in him to get him clear of traffic and right in behind the dueling leaders into the first turn. And it looked like at that point the race was probably over where he was sitting. I mean, you got Javier and Todd as hot as can be, and you get 4-1. I thought that was a pretty generous price for a horse that, he's had some graded stakes, grade 1 stakes placings, and he was a pretty good horse as a 3-year-old. And Todd thinks he's going to want to run all day, and he's pointing him eventually for the Brooklyn on the Belmont undercard. But it was a great ride for Javier on that horse, too, getting him right where he needed to be. And then, like I said, from there it was pretty much over. Senor Quisquiano, I thought, ran pretty gamely in light of the fact that he had a duel early. He wound up eventually finishing 3rd. But, I think Micromanage, as Todd says, is a horse that's going to get better the further he goes.
On the female side, the distaff side on the main track, Gamay Noir at 49-1, the other Wolfson.
Yeah, 49-1. I mean, and I'm not redboarding here because I never considered her, but Marty, after the race, did say that if you watch the replay of her race at Tampa, she probably should have won that. She got a bad ride and a bad trip, and that's the reason he even took a shot and put her in here. The leaders did stagger down the stretch, and it sure seemed like, at least early in the card, that speed and maybe down on the inside was not the place to be on this course. And then I think they watered it a little more midway through the card, and it might have changed that a bit. But, Devil's Cave and Unlimited Budget really got the staggers the last 1/8 of a mile, and, she picked up the pieces to her credit. I mean, she did lug in a little bit. There was a Stewart's inquiry. It was close. They probably could have been justified to take her down for bothering Todd's other horse in there. But, give Marty credit. He took the shot with her, and I don't think he expected her to be the one he was posing with after the race, but that's the way it turned out.
And Jazz and Newsdad, different routes to the winner's circle in the Orchid and the Pan American. And then, of course, there was the Sir Shackleton, and we never really got the head-to-head matchup between Rebo Bobo and Happy My Way. Happy My Way, a 107 buyer in this runoff performance, but Joe Bravo had everything his own way, and Paco Lopez kind of takes back off the break in Rebo Bobo, and that was it, race over.
Yeah, Rebo Bobo wasn't really the best Rebo Bobo we've seen yesterday. He kind of blew the turn a little bit coming into the stretch. I mean, this race was over as soon as Happy My Way broke and cleared off. My concern was he might not break real sharp because he didn't the last time he had the rail. But once he broke and was right up there like that, this horse is just so good right now. And, you know, Revo Bobo, I think, maybe just starting to show some effects of his, you know, all those wins and all those races. And he came back a little quicker than trainer Jason Service would have liked. He admitted that. And 6.5 furlongs is maybe just at the edge of his of what he really wants to do anyway. So once Happy My Way got loose on the lead like that, it was no doubt it was over. I just, you know, surprised to see him win off the way he did. And it'll be interesting to see what Joe does with him now. I mean, because this horse obviously loves Gulfstream Park. And Joe thinks he's better on, insists he's better on turf than dirt, so we'll see what happens next.
Mike, let's talk about the maiden winners because all three were notable on the main track. I'm not so worried about the turf race. Palace Gate, you know, was fine getting over. Let's talk about Viva Mallorca. This is now the second time starter that Ian Wilkes has foisted on the public here in about a month. There was Demander at 30-1, going back about 3 weeks, 85 buyer. Then Uhlenbader, who, you know, took money, 85 buyer for that maiden win the other day. Now, here is Viva Mallorca for Mrs. Whitney. This is a serious horse. He's a May foal, so I think Ian's going to take his time with him. Talk to him this morning. Give us your thoughts, because a 98 buyer in this performance that saw him win by a dozen.
Yeah, no, that was really impressive, and he had a nice big long stride to him. First race, he made a nice run, and then he flattened out badly. Maybe he bled because he did come back with blinkers. You know, my concern yesterday was the inside post with him, too, breaking, you know, from the rail. And once he got good position and got outside, and it was all over there, too. But, you know, I guess some guys would almost be tempted, well, we'll try to bluegrass and see if we can get him into the Derby. But obviously they're not going to do that, or maybe try something and look at the Preakness or whatever. But to Ian's credit, I think he's going to throttle down on this horse and just bring him along slowly. And, you know, it's Mrs. Whitney, so... we'll point to Saratoga, right?
Absolutely. And coming out of the Philly race, an hour later, here was Shug McGahee, my favorite angle, 7 furlongs, first-time starter, La Madrina, and we talked about her on Friday. This was a serious field, but she was a ton the best.
Yeah, she was very, very impressive. And, you know, with Shug, he's got a reputation of not cranking one down first time out. But like you say, maybe more so at 6 than 7. But even still, but the breeding, you know, really said it all. You know, tap it and out of tap it and a half to Verrazano. So it was very easy to like this horse off breeding alone. You never know how they're training when they're coming out of pacing. We got nobody up there to kind of report for us, so you're just kind of guessing how they're doing, how they're working. But there was no doubt she was fit, she was ready to go, and she's a very talented filly.
And then another race that people may not have noticed another hour later, this was the 1 1/16 maiden for 3-year-old boys, and Charge Now was terrific. The Tisnow colt for Winstar and Bill Mott. This was a nice performance, 84 buyer here.
Yeah, good race. Outgame Legend, who I kind of liked in the race, and you know, he looked. It was kind of surprising that he ran him on the turf the first time, considering his pedigree being half the Super Saver and half the Brethren. And you know, he ran like a horse that's probably going to be better on the dirt than the turf. And maybe Bill just figured he needed a race, or maybe at the time he was ready to run, the dirt race didn't go and the turf race was there. So that's what he uses kind of a prep to get him ready for his second start. But you know, he deserved the victory. He earned it. He outgamed a horse that I think is pretty good too in Legend.
Well, Mike, you've had a legendary championship meet.
It was fun. You know, it was fun. I had a good time, and it's sad that you know, from now here on in, it's going to be you know, looking outside the box here to other parts of the country until getting to Kentucky and then up to Saratoga. But we do have one more. We got the Calder Derby next week with a Derby horse in there already, Ring Weekend, and from what I understand, Claiborne's heading that way. So that should be an interesting race.
Mike, as always, very appreciative of everything all winter long, and obviously we're not done talking, and we'll be together, of course, in Kentucky watching the horses work, and it's certainly going to be a group of horses. People are going to, I think, be very much anxious to hear how they look coming in toward the first Saturday in May. Thanks so much.
Yeah, we got a bunch of them are going to stay here and train a little bit. I know Todd's probably going to work his all his Derby horses a couple of times here. Intense Holiday's already back here, and Constitution, and Jose's going to stay here with Wildcat Red up until his last work before the Derby. So we'll have a few more reports out of here before I head to Kentucky and join the rest of the Derby contenders there.
Mike Welch, everybody, DRF Welsh on Twitter and all over, of course. One more weekend of the Clocker reports, and for those of you that were wondering about the Rainbow Six, it is going to continue to the end of the meet. The carryover just absolutely enormous, but really yesterday $43,000 payoff for those that hit, and I think they bet.
I didn't see. Was there anything alive for the whole thing going into the last leg?
I don't think so.
Why don't we get the guys to just we'll wrap up here, but cue up the Derby, and while you're queuing up the Derby, because we didn't have that next up, we'll just talk about the Oaks and the
Fairgrounds Oaks and the Fairgrounds Derby, and Palace Malice, who was spectacular winning the New Orleans Handicap.
We'll talk about those, and they can queue up the Derby, and we'll watch that when we wind up. But while they're queuing that up, let's talk a little bit about the Fairground Oaks. It was a short field, a fun field though. Untappable wins it. The number 1 horse, 50 Shades of Gold runs second. Unbridled Forever runs third. Short field of 5. All 3 of those were very good, and they all were in contention at one point. But when the real running started, Untappable crowned herself as the leader of that division.
This filly is spectacularly good, and tell you what, for all the carrying on that's going to happen. Steve Asmussen and the Winchells and David Fisk, their manager, they're going to show up in Kentucky with the favorite for the Kentucky Oaks, Untappable, maybe an overwhelming favorite, and they very well yet may have, who knows, they may end up with one of the top choices when it comes to
Derby.
Tapiture.
Yeah.
They may have one of the top 3 or 4 choices for the Derby as well with Tapiture. So I don't know if are we watching? What do we got here first?
No, we're going to queue up we're just going to watch the Louisiana Derby. Talk about the other 2.
The Filly got a 107 buyer, by the way, and so she just keeps following one great performance up. There were a lot of people lined up to go against her, assuming that she would regress. No, she actually is as good right now. I've picked her. I've had her at number 5 in the 3-year-old poll. I've had her at number 5 for weeks, from the first poll at the beginning of the month, and I think she's as good right now as any colt in the country.
And Steve Asmussen was actually there in the winner's circle yesterday, which I found interesting. Didn't get interviewed afterwards, but New Orleans Handicap, it was a fun race. Braidster, I thought was interesting, disappointed running 6th in the field of 6. Prayer for Relief scratched. That horse was going to be a little bit interesting to me, but the 2 horses obviously attracting a lot of attention. Palace Malice and Normandy Invasion. Normandy Invasion in the second start on the comeback, the second place finish, no disgrace there, but Palace Malice validated, going to be a really good player in this handicap division.
Holy cow. And every weekend we get another big handicap horse that just keeps advancing along the way. It's going to be a tremendous year for the older horses, whether it's the Met Mile division types or the mile and an eighth and beyond. Already looking forward to the Whitney. I mean, that's the kind of summer we're going to have.
And finally, we will look at the stretch run on the Louisiana Derby. Grade 1, $1 million, mile and an eighth. It is Vickers in trouble, leading him all the way around for Rosie Napravnik, Mike Maker, Ken and Sarah Ramsey. Running second will be the Pletcher Intense Holiday. West Point Commanding Curve improves off of the seasonal debut to run third. But boy, this was kind of a tour de force from Vickers in trouble, but I'm not sure what to make of this Louisiana trail to the Kentucky Derby.
This was not a very good prep, frankly. This is a nice horse. Don't think necessarily a mile and a quarter is going to be to his liking. And everybody that was behind him, this was not a great performance for Intense Holiday, unfortunately. And certainly always happy for Jack Wolf and Don Lucarelli when Starlight does well. But this horse was out of sync. He was not. I don't know if you saw what was going on, but his leads and his rhythm was completely verklempt in the stretch. That's not an encouraging sign. And so Todd Pletcher probably, as Mike Welch told you, back at Palm Meadows, intense holiday, I'm sure they're going to want to go over him. I hope everything is squared away with him. But they came home slowly, and this was not super encouraging. And it's a little surprising, Seth, only because the Opportunity, the way he came out of the Risen Star, and there was so much expectation for the horses based on that, and I don't know. This was not encouraging.
Yeah, like I say, I'm not sure what to make of that.
Yeah, I mean, not that Vicker's in trouble. And of course, Ken Ramsey's bouncing off the wall. He's got himself a kitten. He's got himself an Artie Schiller. Got himself Vicker's in trouble.
And he's number one on the points list. Vickers in trouble, 120 now, leads the list. Toast of New York, the UA Derby winner, who may not show up. He may be one of the defections. Second, Constitution, third right now. Intense Holiday, fourth.
I want Toast of New York to come.
I
was this far with Declaration of War. Yeah. I want Toast of New York to turn up here.
All right, we're going to wrap things up for Loose on the Lead for this Sunday morning. Seth Merrill from Equidaily, Steve Beck from Sirius and XM's At the Races. We're every Sunday morning from 10 until 11 a.m. Don't forget, questions or comments, Loose on the Lead at yahoo.com, or check out our Facebook page. And
be down in New York next weekend.
Oh, okay. So will we have you by phone?
You will. We'll recap the Wood Memorial live at Aqueduct next weekend. Should be a tremendous day. The turf races pushed back a little bit yet in New York.
And I think training up at Saratoga is dicey too. They were supposed to move in, I think, the middle of April, and they're still fighting the weather up there too. So we'll hope that things turn around that way as well. All right, we're going to wrap things up for Loose on the Lead for this Sunday morning. We're going to step out. I'm going to let Steve Bick go home and send in his Duncan story, his best Duncan story for this week.
I got to put together Santa Anita, $93,000 carryover at Arcadia today. I got to write that up.
And I'm still playing the Rainbow Six. I emailed you. I hit it on Wednesday. $1,500 for a $38 ticket.
Look at you.
So I'm in the rolling.
You're buying. You didn't bring any pastry.
Well, next week. Next week you won't be here. All right, we're going to wrap things up. Loose on the Lead here on Sunday morning.
Is that what you want?
We'll see you next week. Stay tuned.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.